Long before the mountains of Skyrim pierced the sky, its origins stretched back into the primordial mists of time. In the earliest memories of the Elder Scrolls universe, time itself flowed gently, shaping creation like a dream weaving in and out. There was no Skyrim, no Tamriel, only endless possibilities, a world still undecided whether it would come to be. The spirits destined to become gods floated aimlessly, exploring the meaning of existence, drifting like thoughts within the consciousness of a sleeping giant. Among these spirits, two mighty forces would forever influence Skyrim's destiny: Akatosh, the dragon god of time, and Lorkhan, the trickster whose thoughts were half chaos, half creation. Alongside countless others, they ignited the spark that birthed the universe. In those early days, the universe was filled with contemplation and faint awareness of something greater lurking beyond the void. The spirits debated whether a mortal realm should even exist, hesitant about the chains of reality that creation would impose. Lorkhan was captivated by the idea of struggle and growth, believing that hardship would imbue life with purpose, while Akatosh hesitated, wary of the bindings that came with physical existence. This tension sparked the first great cosmic conflict, an ancient struggle that would echo through countless ages, shaping the land and beings of Skyrim. From their disagreements, the world was born not as a perfect harmony, but as a compromise forged in sacrifice. The creation left scars, with mountains carved from the drained spirits, rivers flowing through wounds in reality, and a sky stretched wide over a world born from discord. As the ages passed, the influence of Akatosh began to stabilize the new realm, giving structure to moments, memories, and the flow of time itself. The earliest days of Skyrim were tumultuous. The land was unstable, seas restless, and the sky flickered unpredictably with bursts of raw magic. The terrain was wild and primal, with storms tearing across the north, sculpting valleys and lifting mountains into the air before dropping them again. From the clouds, the ancestors of dragons observed, sensing that the world was settling into a new form, an age of chaos giving way to order in those distant epochs. The dragon gods soared through the skies, embodying natural forces like winter, storms, and the passage of seasons. Alduin, the World Eater, roared with the weight of destiny, fulfilling his role before the bones of the world were even formed. Dragons, as reflections of time itself, did not rule Skyrim. Then they existed above it, timeless and patient, waiting for the land to mature enough for civilization to flourish. Gradually, the world found its shape. Continents cooled and settled into familiar forms, with icy peaks covering the land in snow year-round, creating the frozen mountains that would one day shelter cities and fortresses. During this period, the ancient spirit children Elni began wandering across the land. Some remained close to the original spirits, becoming ancestors of the Mir, while others adapted more deeply to the physical realm, eventually giving rise to humans before the arrival of mortals. A great war between the Elnafe divided them, separating into Elnaf and wandering Elnafter in the world apart again. This conflict reshaped continents, cracked mountain ranges, and flooded valleys with seas that had no name. From this chaos emerged the boundary lines of Skyrim, carved not by diplomacy, but by mythic violence beyond mortal comprehension. The land, scarred and frozen, took on the form familiar to the future inhabitants. In the aftermath, the Mer-like peoples, known as the Amur, spread across Tamriel, yet Skyrim remained largely untouched by their influence. Harsh weather and rugged terrain made the region difficult to traverse, and only a few adventurous or exile groups of Mir ventured into the north, leaving behind ruins that would later be mistaken for ancient civilizations. For centuries, Skyrim's earliest history was silent, shaped by ice, wind, and the spirits of ancestors who crossed frost-bitten plains and carved their stories into legend. A new people arrived from across the Sitha Atmarens, the ancestors of humanity who came in waves spanning centuries, originating from the frozen continent of Atora. Plagued by worsening climate and internal strife, these settlers marked the dawn of a new era. They sought a new home, forging a resilient culture in the face of relentless cold and hostility. Their simple settlements consisted of modest halls, crude fortifications, and encampments along coasts and rivers. Among the early Atmaran settlers was Isra, a legendary figure whose legacy shadows Skyrim's history like an enduring specter. He arrived with his kin, inscribing the earliest forms of human writing and establishing the first recorded events in Skyrim's chronicles. These early humans shared their lands with the Snow Elves, an ancient and noble people who had inhabited the region for countless generations. For a time, a fragile peace persisted, but as human populations grew, tensions arose. The conflict reached its breaking point during the Night of Tears, when the Snow Elves, fearing encroachment, launched a devastating attack on the settlement of Sal. Nearly everyone was slaughtered, save for Ysgramor and his 2 sons. This tragedy ignited a chain of events, the revenge of Ysgramor, who gathered 500 legendary companions and returned to Skyrim, seeking justice for his people. His forces drove the Snow Elves into hiding, many fleeing into the dark, underground refuges later known as the Dwemer. Masters of engineering and logic carved vast underground cities beneath Skyrim's mountains, powered by mechanisms so advanced they appeared magical. They believed knowledge was divine, pouring their efforts into the creation of tunnels, halls, and chambers, illuminated by glowing stones. Their architecture was precise, almost mathematical, a testament to their unwavering faith in logic over the gods. Meanwhile, the farmer, the Snow Elves' descendants, revered the sky and built delicate homes along mountain ridges, worshipping the winter sun and the spirits of snowflakes. They believed that wisdom resided in the coldest places, and their art and rituals reflected a profound connection to nature. As the Dwemer thrived in their subterranean kingdoms, the surface of Skyrim was shaped by the Nords, resilient tribes who carved their homes into the land. Great cities like Whiterun and Windhelm rose on the shoulders of mountains and plains, their walls built through labor and pride. These cities became centers of culture, power, and tradition, with the echoes of ancient battles and victories carried in songs and stories. Yet, beneath the surface, the ancient spirits of the land stirred silent witnesses to a history of conflict, sacrifice, and resilience in those distant ages. The dragon gods soared high, embodying natural law and cosmic order. Alduin, the World Eater, was seen as the ultimate force of destruction and renewal. The dragons did not govern Skyrim through dominance, but as extensions of the natural. cyclamens beings whose presence was felt in the very fabric of the land. Parthnax, the most curious among them, believed that there was a purpose beyond destruction and understanding that could be unlocked through the power of the voice. The the first humans, inspired by the dragon's majesty, learned to speak their language and ancient power that could shape destiny. This gift, forbidden and dangerous, marked the beginning of rebellion and uprising against the tyranny of the dragon cult. The War of the Dragons, known as the Dragon War, raged across Skyrim's mountains and skies, reshaping the land with fire and fury. Mountains split, valleys burned, and the sky itself seemed to tear apart under the wings of the immortal predators. Alduin, the most powerful of the dragons, sought to crush the mortal resistance. But the Greybeards and Parthnax, recognizing the potential of mortals, taught them the Thaum-giving humanity, a voice that could challenge even the mightiest of dragons. The struggle was fierce, with many cities destroyed and blood spilled. But ultimately, Alduin was banished through the power of the Elder Scroll. The dragons receded into myth, their temples abandoned and silent, their influence fading into history as the First Era dawned. Skyrim rose as one of the earliest unified human kingdoms in Tamriel, ruled by the successors of Uramur. The land shifted from mythic chaos into recorded history. But the echoes of the ancient ages persisted, memories of dragons, ancient wars, and the reverence for ancestors who carved life from the icy wilderness. The Nordic people, proud and steadfast, called themselves the Nords, shaped by the unforgiving beauty of their homeland, their identity forged from myth and memory, frost and fire. The ages continued, and the land grew colder, the snow deepening year after year. The ancient spirits of the land, the Elni, wandered through the frozen landscapes, some becoming ancestors, others transforming into the first Mir. One of the earliest tragedies was the war between the El-Nofei, a conflict that tore the continent apart once more, flooding valleys and cracking mountains. From these ruins, Skyrim's borders were marked not by diplomacy but by violent mythic conflict, leaving scars that would endure through ages. Later, the Mer-like peoples, called the Amur, spread across Tamriel, but Skyrim remained largely untouched by their influence. The harsh climate and rugged terrain kept the land wild. Only a few brave or exile groups of Mir ventured into the north, leaving behind ruins that would be mistaken for ancient relics. For centuries, Skyrim's history was one of silence, ice, and wind till the arrival of the Atmarans, coming from the frozen continent of Atora.